as we dive a little further, we looked at the consumer aspect. We looked at some recommendations from sending it out so that you are able to get on the phone and talk to the customer other than price and availability. And we certainly understand that people have champagne taste and a beer budget. By offering them lower priced alternatives, it would have a greater likelihood of you engaging them in further dialogue. And of course, by giving them a picture of a pre-owned, it's the same as if you went to a restaurant and you saw one item on the menu is too expensive, you didn't like it, as opposed to walking into a restaurant with 238 items that are similar that could save you some money. Typically, what you say to the waiter or waitress is either, this is what I'm looking for, or listen, there's too many things on the menu, what do you recommend, or tell me about the special of the day, which is perhaps the pre-owned vehicle that there's greater details on. All of which engage you in a form of dialogue and bring the two of you together telephonically, which leads to the appointment into the dealership. So let's get into understanding that this doesn't work for all customers. It's designed to work for 80% of them. No matter what we do, no matter how we look at our industry, there's a percentage of our customers that are going to give us a hard time. So if you look at the makeup of all customers, 100%, they're broken down into what we call 3 categories. The best category, the ones we get up and we live for, are the 10%ers, the people who pay all the profit. They absolutely love us. They are the ones that after they complete the purchase of the car, they give us a perfect CSI score, and then they come in and bring us a bottle of wine or a plate of pasta or bake us cookies, and they send us a thank you card because literally we changed their life, and they pay MSRP and they buy everything in the F&I department. It just was a pleasant experience for everybody, and they go away as our happiest customers. On the opposite end of the spectrum, we are never going to change the fact that 2 out of 10 people are going to bust our chops. They're going to give us a hard time. They're going to demoralize us. Those are just the unhappy people. If we had a way in our industry to brand them on a forehead with some kind of a rubber stamp so that when they came into the showroom floor, we could say, listen, the view looks a lot better from the other door. Why don't you just go right on walking out and not deal with them? We would probably be better off because those people have a tendency to demoralize us, to take advantage of us, to make us want to quit, to not spend any money for the profit, not spend any money in F&I, and then the next day they come in and tell the service or parts manager we promised them a set of floor mats when we didn't, and kill us on CSI. You're never going to change those people. We just have to realize that when dealing with human nature, 2 out of 10 are going to give us some challenges. But what we do look at is that 70% of the people just want to be treated fairly. Just give me a fair price. Please don't make me pay more than my next door neighbor, but treat me with respect and I'll be happy to give you a fair profit. So when we create a process, we created it designed around 80% of our customers, not so much the 20% that bust our chops. If a guy gets on the phone and he starts pushing my buttons and busting the chops as a 20%er, I might say something like this to him, you know, sir, at the Internet department here at ABT Motors, we do the meet and greet, the fact finding, the inventory walk, the product presentation to you as a service to try to save you time and convenience. It sounds to me like you'd feel a little bit more comfortable with the traditional sales process. How about I set up an appointment for one of our regular retail salesmen? He'd be happy to take care of you. And, of course, give it to the green pea to get them cut their teeth on something like that. But I'm just giving you an idea and a concept. You certainly can get an idea of what you're dealing with if we articulate the phone script and deal with some of these aspects right. When you guys role play, and we want you to take advantage of these scripts, we want you to say if you need to get copies of them, please get in touch with me. I'd be happy to send it, or your Autobytel representative. We do training for dealerships on that side to help them get comfortable so that it makes a big difference. But we encourage you to not focus on being a 20%er. That's part of the process we think is important, is to think in terms of the 80% rule. 80% of our customers function this way, so let's assume the responsibility. And we're going to use an example of a trade-in in a minute. We want you to think in terms of be realistic. Don't say that you have a 1942 Henway unless all your trade-ins are kind of the same way, which they're not. So be realistic on the trade-in, and I'll give you some samples of this go. So let's assume we're engaged into a phone dialogue, and for the purpose of creating that phone dialogue, I'll have to play both sides of it, so I'll give you an idea. We first create, which you'll see in a moment, a script, and we realize most of you don't like scripts. We have a methodology of teaching the scripts, in such a way that you actually practice it, role play it, learn it, we discuss it, we convert it to pictures like Pictionary, and then it becomes permanently implanted in your brain, and then the word prompts start to trigger to keep you on track of what to say. So let's assume that you're a customer and you're looking for a Ford F-150, and I'm making that phone call, and the objective is to stay off price. So I'll go, hello, this is Dennis. I'm calling from ABT Ford. The reason for the phone call is I just want to make sure, first of all, I'll follow up with you. Am I interrupting anything? And the answer would be no, go ahead. The reason for the phone call is I wanted to make sure you got the email we sent you regarding the F-150. It's really important because of email filters and spam blockers to know that you were able to receive that. Did you get it yet? Great. Listen, the question that I had for you, was there anything on there that was missing? Was there anything that you wanted to have that we didn't have an opportunity to talk about? And then, of course, we'll go into, listen, before you decided on the F-150, had you considered any other makes or models? And if the answer is, of course, no, then they have just told you, obviously, that they have made a decision to get the F-150. If they say yes, then, of course, you know who your competition is. It might not be another Ford dealership. It might be a Chevrolet or a Dodge or something along that line. Now, of course, then the next question we would ask is, what are you driving now? This is what sort of turns the tide and brings in a different element in those discussions. Obviously, what you want to do is open that dialogue from what are you driving now to something more specific, such as let them talk about their own car. Everyone's personal car is a reflection of them, and the more they can talk about that, the more they're going to tell you their likes and their dislikes. So we usually compliment them, which goes against the grain of many of what we try to do is when the customer gets to the dealership, you try to break them down on the value of the car, but you're not together with them yet. What you want to do is become excited and encouraged about the value of that car because you're giving them more promise than a competitor who's trying to say, you know, they're not worth much or how much money do you owe on it. Of course, we ask them about the condition. This is when the dynamics of the relationship change and the customer starts selling you the vehicle because they start talking about the tires, the condition, the paint, has it had regular service work, has it ever been in an accident. The whole dynamics of the conversation and the relationship tends to change. And then we ask the customer, what do they like best? When we ask them what they like best, more often than not, they wind up telling us if they're motivated by safety, comfort, or performance, and those same motivations would apply to the next vehicle that they're going to consider purchasing. And of course, if there was something you could change about that vehicle, what would it be? That's where they would identify their hot button and the reason that they're looking for a new car today. Now, those are two pieces that become very helpful in the sales process of determining how to react to that customer and to learn what might be the necessary aspects of closing it. At this juncture, we encourage you to say, well, gosh, are you planning on trading that car in or selling it private party? What are your plans with it? And, of course, they'll set the stage for creating the benefit request. And then, of course, we determine if it is a trade-in, which we used in that first example. So in order for us to get the most money for your vehicle as a trade-in, and we certainly love that, to see something like that, we need for us to get together. Would it be more convenient for you to come by today or tomorrow? Always providing choices, and by narrowing the choices down morning or afternoon, and then set the stage for time. So here's a script. We make one script. It's very simple. It's easy to learn. We go through it. We understand the psychology. Every word, every piece of dynamic, every position is designed to ultimately take you down the path, but more importantly, to avoid the conversation of price and availability on the phone. And there's a tremendous amount of psychology that was built into each one of those phrases as we go. The first part of psychology, of course, you have to have an introduction to create that. But in order to get permission to proceed, realize that some people, you're not going to sell anything to anyone unless you first get their attention. So the idea of, say, am I interrupting anything? You have greater likelihood of moving through the conversation with a pleasant experience. If you're talking to a woman who has dinner on the stove, screaming kids, and somebody, UPS, bringing the doorbell outside, you're probably not going to captivate her attention, so set the stage to call her at a different time. The reason I called is just to make sure you got it. It takes the curse off the call because there's a certain percentage of people that are afraid when they see the caller ID that they're going to be sold. And, of course, it opens it up. Most often the customers apologize, A, because they read your email, didn't reply, or B, because they didn't have a chance to check their email. Either way, it puts you in a better position of control. When we say, is there anything missing, it opens the avenue up for them to discuss the other shoppings and open-ended questions. It really gets that dialogue between the two of you As you considered other makes, again, it will identify what your benefit request is going to be, which I'll show you in a minute, and then it will also set the stage for you guys to see who your competition is. Are you competing against other Ford dealerships, or is it against other brands, which is more likely than not in today's world? What is your current car? Get them to talk about themselves, give them hope. Guys, I can't encourage you enough to say if you get excited about the customer's trade-in, the likelihood of you having that opportunity to turn it around will be much greater. And when you talk about how's the condition of the car, once again, it turns them into the salesperson and you into the buyer. And of course, we've discussed what do you like best, and if something about it you could change, and of course continue to provide options until you get those appointments. Never give up, and never say, well, I work all the way from 10 to 2 or from 10 to 9 p.m. What works best for you? Because they'll come in at a time that's not convenient. Always schedule it by an appointment. They'll have a greater likelihood of showing up. Now we realize that not everybody trades a car in, so with using the same script, we alternate with the benefit request. In these 3 pages you're going to see, this one will follow by 2 others, every possible way a person could be coming to you to determine whether it's a trade-in or selling a private party would be there. So we've built in the answers to say, yes, I'm trading in, great in order to get the highest price. But if they're selling a private party, you have the alternate to saying, you know, that might be the right thing to do. But a car like yours, with that many miles on it, in that condition, I got to tell you, we'd love to have something where it's so difficult for us to find trade-ins, and a locally owned, family-driven vehicle with a history is no mystery is worth more to us than it is anybody else. So in order for us to find out what that vehicle's worth, we'd be happy to show it to you. Besides, if you do sell a private party, at least we'd be able to give you some advice to what to put that for. A lease return, you come back to saying, do you realize you might have equity? In order for us to find out if you have equity, we need for us to get together. And of course, if my car was stolen, or what we call stolen or totaled, or if I'm a first-time buyer, the questions become, well, let me ask you a question. How are you getting around now? That's generally they're either renting a car, or they're borrowing it from somebody, or the family has to drive it. So the benefit to the consumer has to become, in order to prevent you from having to borrow cars from your friends and ruin that relationship, we need for us to get together. In order for us to prevent you from having to pay money on that rent-a-car every day, let's try to get together. And the last but not least is I'm going to give the car to my son or daughter. So we create an alternate by saying, what that might be the right thing to do, but I got to ask you a question. Is your daughter excited to get a car or just your old car? And the answer is usually we find that they're excited to get a car, but they prefer not to have dad's old car. So we encourage you to say, come into the dealership, let's take a look and see if we can't get something more conducive to your daughter's personality. At the same time, since your car's worth the most to us as a trade-in, we could see if we could get a trade-in for you for the maximum amount and work something out for the both of you. If you decide to give the car to your daughter, we'll do a road safety check on it and a condition report, so at least you know you'll be passing a safe vehicle on. In order for us to do that, we need for us to get together. So all of the possible avenues and benefits are built into that structure. Do remember, when you ask for the appointment, always make sure that you're structured those appointments on today or tomorrow, Wednesday or Thursday, Friday or Saturday, but never give up until you've done that. You have one opportunity once you get the customer on the phone to set the appointment. You want to make sure that you accelerate that opportunity for the best way. And those dealerships who are operating with what we call a CDC or a BDC, where you have people calling, we created a cheat sheet for you right here so that you can actually plug in the customer's name and hand it off to the salesman so that they know enough about what the person's currently driving, about the condition, what motivates them to get a car, if they're motivated by safety, comfort, or performance, and all of the principal things that help us design and, as a team, make sure that this turns into a profitable sale for the whole dealership. So we do create a series of role-playing exercises, and if you want to know more about that, we come to the dealership and we practice different scenarios, because every one of your customer has an issue, they have a problem, they have a circumstance, and the better we are at articulating and answering questions and finding out what makes them tick, the more likely that they'll not only come and see us, but it will be a pleasant experience and a very high closing ratios. Most of you that get people to show up at your dealership have closing ratios that are close to 70 or 80%. So the key is to use all the techniques that we've shared with you today in these 4 series of webinars to get these people in and have a lot of fun selling cars. So if you need more information, please contact your Autobytel representative or feel free to contact me. And thank you guys for attending.